Bore da pawb.
Morning all and welcome to the planning meeting.
The planning meeting is being held today on May the 12th, 2021. This meeting is being webcast with the exception of any business that the Council resolves to exclude the press and public because of the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by the Local Government Act 1972. So I'll just hand over to our legal officer now to just go through the declarations of interest. So I'll hand over to Tim.
Thank you, obliged. Bore da, good morning members. Agenda item number 2, declaration of interest. Members are to declare any personal or indeed prejudicial interest in any business identified to be considered at this meeting. Members will no doubt be aware of the requirements of under the Council's Code of Conduct to declare any personal or prejudicial interest in respect of any business to be considered at today's meeting. Such interest should be declared now or as soon as the councillor affected becomes aware that they have a personal or prejudicial interest in today's business. All members declaring an interest are required to state clearly what the interest is and to advise whether it is a personal interest or indeed a personal and prejudicial interest as defined in the Code of Conduct. Any member declaring a prejudicial interest is required to leave the chamber for the duration of the business and can take no part in the proceedings. Members with a personal interest only may, however, take part in the debate and any votes. If a personal or prejudicial or personal interest is declared today that has not previously been disclosed and recorded, the councillor concerned will be required to complete and sign a declaration of interest form, which of course is available from the committee support staff here today. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll just go through agenda item 1 before we do the declarations of interest, which is apologies. I don't think I haven't had any apologies. So if you know of anyone that is not here and they've apologized to you, can you just unmute and give their apologies, please? Okay. All right, so no apologies. Okay, agenda item number 2 is the declarations of interest. So I think Councillor Melvin Mile.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd like to declare a personal interest in item 5. It's the explanation is a bit long-winded. I have no connection at all with the applicant, which is Knights Construction. However, I work part-time for a Momentum Wine in Oswald Street, and we are a wine supplier to the Three Eagles Bar and Grill in LLANGOLLEN. And a director of Knights Construction is also a director of the Three Eagles Bar and Grill, is Matt Jones. As far as I know, he takes no part in the day-to-day operation of the Three Eagles. I have explained the situation to our legal officer, and and after that conversation, he told me to record this personal interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, sounds very clear that it's a personal rather than a personal and prejudicial, so that's fine. Thank you. So you can stay in and obviously have the vote and things like that. Councillor Pete Prendergast.
Yes, I'd like to say I've got a personal interest in agenda item number 9. It's an application from myself, so I shall leave the meeting when that comes up.
Yeah, so that was personal and prejudicial.
Yes.
For reasons.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, I've got your email saying you're going to leave obviously at that point. Thank you. Any other personal declarations of interest? King Hodder then, Ms. Wynne?
Just to we're not interested in the agenda today, just for information for myself more, in fact, how do I now go about getting the form following the last meeting where I expressed an interest with a prejudicial interest in a case? I haven't signed any form yet, even though it's been noted that I have expressed interest. Well, how do I get hold of that form, please?
Okay, you can if you can send it in via email, then that will be fine to send it into Democratic Services.
The form is available.
You'll get it sent by Democratic Services. Steph Jones is just telling me she's going to send it to you. She'll email it to you. Deal. Okay, moving on to agenda item 3. Oh, and just if you want to speak today, if you just make sure if you use the raise hand button on the what are we on, Zoom? I never know, Zoom, Teams or whatever. So if you do the raise hand, then obviously we can see who's wanting to speak, because I can't necessarily see everyone's picture that I'm looking at. So
I've got trouble again getting on this. My passcode here, my oh,
right.
Okay. It was my pay control.
You're not on mute. I don't know if you're talking to me or not. Oh, there we go. Right. So agenda right.
95473. So is it no letters we have before that? No.
Can you mute please? I don't think he's Peter Evans.
It's someone not on mute, isn't it, Chair? They're not on mute.
I think it's
the whole
thing. Getting on.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'm just going to do a quick scan to check that we are quorate. So I think we are, but just to doubly check just before we go through.
I've got a sound in it too, but no camera. Yeah.
Right. So is Mab on here?
Yeah.
Can't see him. No, but Ellie's here. Ellie Chard, I've seen you. Anne Davis is here. Yeah. Peter Evans is here. Brian's here. Tina. Yeah, I can see Tina. Gwyneth, Christine, Mel. Bob's here, isn't he? Yep. Mervyn. Yep. Paul Penlington. No. Okay, I can't see Paul. Pete's here. Peter Scott. Yep.
Yeah.
Tony, Julian. Is Julian here? No. Emrys, Mark, and myself and Alan. Yep. Okay, we're fine. Right, sorry about that. Okay, agenda item number 3, urgent matters as agreed by the chair. I do not have any. So we'll go on to agenda item number 4, which is the minutes of the meeting. So this is to confirm the accuracy of the minutes of the planning committee meeting held on the 14th of April 2021. So if we just go through them. Okay, we've got, so that's on pages 9 to pages 18. So page 9, which was the declarations of interest, really. And then page 10, we had application number 5, which was on page 11 as well. Page 12 and 13, we had application number 6. And that was also on page 14 as well. On page 15, we had application number 7. Page 16 and 17, application number 8, and then 9, and then 10. Page 18 was the National Plan 2040. Okay, so anyone got any comments, or otherwise can somebody propose that those minutes are correct? And Councillor Alan James seconded, thank you. So we can just do this one. If anyone has any reason to want to go against those minutes, then please unmute and speak. Otherwise, we will assume that they are a correct record. Okay, that's great, thank you. That's the minutes sorted. Right, obviously you have had a little bit of information on the late sheets last night. There's not very much information on that, but obviously they should have come through via email yesterday, last night from Judith. Okay, so we're moving on to the running order of those blue sheets. So it is slightly different because we have obviously the speaker items first. So we have first up, we've got agenda item number 5, which is application number 03/2018/1141. And that is on page 19 of our reports and to page 26. The ward is Llangollen. The ward members are Councillors Melvyn Mile and Councillor Graham Timms. The proposal is the demolition of existing hotel and erection of 16 dwellings. The location is WERN Hotel, MAESMAWR Road, Llangollen, LL27PH. Officer recommendation is to refuse, We do have a public speaker for this one. We don't have any public speakers against. We just have a public speaker for, which is Richard Corbett, who is the agent. So, Mr. Corbett, when you are ready, you will have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Okay, can I take myself off mute now? Ready to go?
Yeah, we're ready to go.
Okay. Good morning, Chairman and Councillors. Firstly, thank you very much to the Planning Officer for a detailed and robust report concluding the only outstanding issue that is of consideration is the location of a development partly outside of the LDP boundary for Llangollen Town. The CWNIN site is a derelict rundown hotel that has been available for sale for approximately 10 years and provides an unsightly welcome to the gateway to the beautiful market town of Llangollen. The number of years a property was marketed with no interest confirms that the hotel and restaurant are simply not viable in this location. A well thought through housing scheme with a suitable housing mix as confirmed by your planning department to meet the needs of the people of Llangollen would be both viable and a benefit to the town. The scheme is a full planning application with no matters reserved and will be delivered to provide a much needed boost to the housing supply of Llangollen and Denbighshire, with a plan which the planning authority accepts is failing to deliver its housing targets. We reiterate that 48% of the land is within the development boundary and 52% is not. The split of the houses referred to within the report is not actually consistent with the amount of land. We wrote to you all with a detailed assessment of the 2 planning considerations supported at national planning policy set out in Planning Policy Wales 11 that would allow you to support the planning application in front of you today, being the lack of housing supply and the reuse of previously developed land, brownfield land. On reading Planning Policy Wales dated Feb 2020-21, CWNIN category falls under a brownfield site as it was previously developed land. Denbighshire's LDPs does not align with its national planning policy. As such, this is a material planning consideration that outweighs the reason for refusal. With regards to the housing supply issue, numerous appeal decisions in neighbouring authorities and throughout Wales have been approved due to the lack of housing supply, and this remains a material planning consideration. The authority has a current shortage under the annual monitoring report for the LDP. The below paragraph is from an appeal decision on land at Rose Road, Flintshire. The changes to the PPW and revocation of TAN 1 have not reduced the importance of delivering new housing, just the way the delivery is planned, measured and monitored. Planning Policy Wales, as revised, states that under-delivery against the trajectory may require a specific early review of a development plan. In my view, this is a clear indication that the government is committed to ensuring that the planning system delivers the housing Wales needs and that under-delivery is a material planning consideration. Within this application, key considerations that have been assessed and supported are density and housing type mix, visual amenity, residential amenity, ecology, drainage including flooding, highways including access and parking, archaeology, open space, education and the recent phosphate issue on the River Dee. Whilst the proposal is a departure from the local development plan, the council's current lack of housing supply and reuse of brownfield land carries significant weight in favour of this development. And given that the proposal would otherwise comply with the development plan and would comply with national planning policies on development on brownfield land, we respectfully ask that permission is granted. Being a small business owner and developer, the applicant, Mr. Jones, completely understands.
3 minutes, thank you. Stop. Thank you. Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye. Oh, bye-bye. You can still stay. Thank you. Okay. So yes, and we did. We all received an email from Mr. Corbett a couple of days ago, outlining some of those points made in the speech there. So thank you for that. Okay, I'll bring in the local member, Councillor Melvin Mile.
Thank you, Chair. We've already got 2 particularly challenging sites in Llangollen which are pretty much falling apart. The BRYN works, which is on the Corwin Road, that is literally, well, there was a fire in there the other week, you know, it's literally the roof's falling in. It's not particularly pretty. We have another place called the old seed factory, which is on the Wrexham Road, and that isn't particularly nice either. My worry is that if we don't do anything with the CWNIN, it's going to go exactly the same way. It'll become yet another blot on the landscape in Llangollen. I mean, I know we're meant to be a jewel in the crown of Denbighshire, I know the scenery around the town is, but some parts of the town, and particularly great. There's been an awful lot of work done between our planners and Mr. Corbett, Welsh Government and everybody else involved. And it's all being whittled down now to either whether Mr. Corbett is correct or our planners are correct. So I am happy to propose that we there'll be grant planning permission in this instance, but I appreciate that the committee needs to have a conversation about it, and I'd be glad if I could come back in later if that's okay with you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, do officers want to come in at this point? Mr. Griffin? Mr. Mead is not with us this morning, so it's all on one pool today. Just put Mr. Griffin.
Not a lot to add to that at this point. I think it might be useful to get us into the conversation and the discussion and see what members think of this one. It's as I say, as been pointed out, it fundamentally comes down to an issue of principle. Do we adhere to our local development plan as per officer recommendation and refuse this application as it's clearly outside of our development boundaries? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't think I've got any members with their hands up, so if you would like, oh, Councillor Mark Young.
Thank you, Chair. My hand's not working, so thanks for that. It's just a couple of questions. So obviously, this approach and this policy we've used before. We've used it in my ward and other wards. So I'm worried about changing policy to suit applications, although I know every application has to be looked at on its own. So my question, where it's been mentioned, is it brownfield site or isn't it? And also the weight we should give, because it's been mentioned we haven't hit our target as an authority, how much weight we should give that. So is it brownfield site? How much weight should we give to the fact that we haven't hit our housing need? And how much difficulty would we be if we start changing policy now, because we have made decisions in the past where we've enforced this policy? Just those three easy ones. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Brian Jones, and then I'll bring in officers.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Whilst I agree with Councillor Miles there in Llangollen, who I hold in high esteem, I think the recommendation to refuse does hold some merit. My comments are not entirely around planning. I think we need to look at the current situation that we're in, coming out of the pandemic, hospitality, particularly in Denbighshire. There's a big opportunity to expand on that going forward in the next few years. And so although this site has been absent without leave for 10 years, that's not to say that in the next 12 months, a group of people, consortium, could come along, inject investment into it, and then you would have a facility which would be adding to the economic benefit of Llangollen and the surrounding area. So I think we need to just consider that there is funding, again outside of this meeting, but there is funding pots that are coming up on the horizon for redevelopment, etc., heritage sites. And so I think we should give that a little bit of a consideration before we make the decision. And obviously the officers have laid it before us that they're recommending that we refuse, but perhaps we should just have a little think before we go ahead. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have, do officers want to come back in on the points Mark Young made as well?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. Just to clarify, the site is brownfield. You can see it's clearly had development on it in the past. As the public speaker mentioned, the Planning Policy Wales does support the notion of prioritising brownfield over greenfield. However, that doesn't override the need to make your decision in accordance with the local development plan, the adopted local development plan in the first instance. So we'd say, yes, it's brownfield. There are plenty of brownfield sites outside of development boundaries that we wouldn't prioritise. The focus is still to keep development within development boundaries unless there's an overriding need to do otherwise. So that leads us on to housing target. If it's clearly we haven't met our housing target, maybe consideration to developing brownfield sites outside of development boundaries could be given. But in this instance, I think officers take a contrary view about whether or not we've met the housing target. a lot of this housing target discussion is focused on the 5-year supply, which, as you probably recall, the Welsh Government disapplied that section of the technical advice notes. So the 5-year supply, it's for us to apply a weight to that. What I would refer you to in terms of our housing targets is the corporate plan, which set out a target of 1,000 dwellings between 2017 and 2021. Policy colleagues advise us that in early 2020, we'd completed 743 dwellings, and there were a further 400 under construction. So the likely is that our corporate plan target of 1,000 dwellings has been met. We are still providing it. We are starting work on reviewing the local development plan, which will then release more land. We just don't see that a case has been made for effectively an open market development that is predominantly, in terms of numbers, outside the development boundary. 12 of the dwellings are outside the development boundary, where we wouldn't normally support that. And I think as other mentioned, as other members have mentioned, apologies for that. You know, we have actually stuck to this policy in the past and successfully so. So we can't see that there's any overriding need to allow 12 dwellings in the open countryside, which is effectively what it is. As I say, the weighting that we attach to the housing supply, well, that is for the decision maker. It's firmly within your remit to attach that, whether or not you think there's an absolute necessity to deliver 12 open market housing outside the development boundary in the absence of a clear justification for that. I think whilst we often say that precedent isn't a key planning issue because you deal with every case on its own merits, this would be a case where you'd send a clear message out to developers across the board. If you were to support this application on the basis that you felt we didn't have enough housing, you are almost inviting developers to apply for plots and sites adjacent to development boundaries across the county as a whole. You would be undermining your own plan-led system, I think. The other justification that I think Councillor Mile mentioned was the eyesore site problem. You know, a matter of opinion there, isn't it, as to whether or not that site is significantly untidy. But what I would say is I don't think that justifies allowing development in the open countryside. I think it doesn't. You can imagine yourselves a situation that if we say, oh, that's an untidy site, let the developer have 12 houses. How many sites could you find across the county that are outside development boundaries that are untidy? We wouldn't go around allowing people to have houses like that. So I think that's a summary. You know, there are no significant impacts physically from the site. It is fundamentally a question of principle and adhering to our plan that we have adopted. And that's the final point I wanted to make. The appeal decisions that's been referred to frequently focus on authorities where their local development plan or their unitary development plan has expired. It's quite clear that our plan hasn't expired. Welsh Government have confirmed that our plan can continue to have effect for the time being. So we're not in a situation where we don't have a plan. So hopefully that'll do for now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, that's very clear. Diolch. Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I think you can hear me, yep. Just a few things. In fact, 12 houses outside of the local development plan. So I would hope that these 12 houses would be affordable houses in line with the policy. But from what I understand, they would be for, as Paul has just said, would be for the open market, these 12 houses. So I don't think it justifies that we can justify that on basis of affordable housing, even though nice that would be, I'm sure. Also, in terms of the potential for CWNIN to turn to this, I don't think that there's nothing to stop a building company to stop developing this site to the future, because it is within the local development plan. Could you correct me if I'm right or wrong on that?
Yeah, I'll bring in Paul Griffin on that again.
Thank you, Councillor Wynne. Yes, the part of the site where there are 4 dwellings located, that's within the development boundary. We would have no objections to those 4, provided there was a 10% affordable housing commuted sum levied. Thank you.
Okay, so I think that's clear.
Sorry.
12 houses. They are not affordable. They've offered 10% only, whereas with further justification, we may accept 100% affordable with further justification, but that's not been offered. They've just offered it as per within the development boundary policies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We've obviously had a bit of a debate about it. We haven't had a proposal for or against or a second or anything like that. I'm just wondering if the local member would like to come back in at this point just to offer any more information to us.
Well, it seems like, having seen the debate, it's not exactly going to go with a proposal to grant. But I would like to make that proposal anyway, and then you can have a vote on it. So how's that? Cheers. Thank you.
Okay, we'll come to reasons in just a moment, but first of all, do we have a seconder for that? We can have more debate about it. Councillor Ellie-Chard.
I'd like to second Melvin's.
Okay,
proposal.
thank you. Okay, so we've got a proposer and a seconder. What we do need from you, Councillor Mile, is obviously the reasons as to why you are happy to go against the officer's recommendation. So if you've got them right now, fantastic. If you haven't, then just have a think. Obviously, the reasons for refusal are very, very clear on page 62. There's only the one reason there. So you would just need to outline to us to make the legal officer happy as to why you're happy to go against that recommendation for refusal.
Well, I'd like to go against it because of the Welsh Government, the guidance of the Welsh, sort of the planning guidance of February 2021 from the Welsh Government, you know, sort of which is, you know, sort of for the brownfield sites. And my main one is that it's the visual enhancement of the area. I'm convinced that it'll never work as a hospitality site. It just isn't going to work. It's failed several times before. It'll fall to rack and ruin, and we'll end up having another blot on the landscape. Those are my reasons.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it's around the housing shortage. Yeah, visual amenity and around the housing shortage. I think those two reasons. And obviously, Councillor Ellie-Chard, you've seconded that. Are you happy with those reasons? Yeah. And I'm just checking with our legal officer that that's okay, that we're okay with those.
My apologies. Can you please just expand a bit more on the visual amenity material planning consideration, please?
That's me, is it? Yeah, I mean, basically, it's going the site will become. It's already looking very untidy. The site, there's some things being dumped there already. It really, you know, I'm convinced that it's going to end up being in a sorry state in the next couple of years. That's my main concern.
Thank you. And in relation to the development itself, how do you envision that will support visual amenity itself? How do you think that will improve?
Well, I think the site itself, obviously, the area, when we were looking at the LDP, the next LDP, which of course is sort of in abeyance because of COVID, most of the MAESMAWR Road area was the area that we were looking at really to include in the next LDP. For example, the diagram on page 46 shows houses to the south of the development site. There being a gap between the houses and the actual development site. Well, that's not the case because the gardens are now running straight down to the back of the development site. So it's not even an open countryside. So, I mean, I know I'm rambling a bit, but developing, having houses, attractive houses on that site would be a lot better than having a tumble down hotel.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Finally, thank you, Councillor Mile. Just also a departure from policy. It does make it clear that unless there's exceptions in relation to affordable housing, can you please address that point, because that will be a clear departure from policy, and the departure has to be affordable housing related. Thanks.
Well, it's difficult for me to do that on the basis that the applicants are only offering, you know, the applicants are only offering a sum in lieu of affordable housing.
Yeah.
So there won't be any affordable housing on that. It'll be open market. It would be open market housing.
Yeah, I think Councillor Mile, what Tim's trying to suggest is obviously if it was all affordable, then it would be more in line with policy. Obviously, they're not offering that. So what's your sort of reasoning behind allowing the 12 to be open market? Are you happy that there's no need for affordable homes within the area or something like that? Well,
it sort of really doesn't come as part of this debate, but also Knights Construction have got an interest in the BRYN works, and I know that they've been talking with RSLs, is it, to try and do some affordable housing there, because obviously if there been any conclusion to that, and they would have been able to offer affordable housing on that site, which is their intention, I understand, it may have offset the 12 houses on the WERN site. But as it is, those I understand those negotiations are still current, so there's nothing been made. So I
think that's fine. I think I'll just no, that's fine. Okay, it's just we just need, it's one of those things, we just need to get it all cleared up before we obviously go to the vote, just to make sure that we're all got exactly, we know what we're voting for and what the reasons would be. So that's absolutely fine. Obviously, if you're voting to refuse, you'd be going in accordance with officer recommendation, so no reasons for that. Obviously, it would be the reason on page 62. So I think we're okay to go to the vote. So that's fine. I don't think I've got any other hands up. Nope. Okay, so what we will do again for the vote, Emily's got his hand up.
I was trying to bring the discussion forward. I was happy to offer, but I'm sure it might be too late now to move that we refuse the application in line with the recommendations from officers. That's what I was going to suggest. I'm not sure whether it's ever any help at all.
In this situation, we don't need somebody to recommend in accordance with officer recommendation, because we've got the reasons there already. So we know we've got the reasons either way. I think in a different scenario, if somebody wanted to do that, we might need to find some reasons, but we don't need to do that on this one. But
I was happy to move that as a counter if that's any use for.
I think we're okay to go to the vote on everything we've got currently. So again, we'll go through it in alphabetical order. If you voting for or obliged, you'll be voting for the application, which will be against officer recommendation. You obviously can vote against, which would be in line with officer recommendation, so against the proposal, or you could vote to abstain. Okay? So hopefully that's nice and clear. I will go through everyone's name on this one, just in case some people who I didn't figure out were here have actually managed to make it onto the meeting. Again, obviously, if you join the planning committee or you get knocked off or whatever, and you don't listen to the whole debate, you need to obviously figure out whether or not you will be able to vote on the item. Cynghorydd Mabinogi.
Councillor Mabinogi Gwynfor, don't think he's here. No.
If no, I don't know. Okay, Councillor Ellie Chard.
For.
Councillor Ann Davis. Theo?
Against, thank you.
Councillor Peter Evans?
Against.
Councillor Alan James?
Against.
Councillor Brian Jones?
Against.
Councillor Gina Jones?
Against.
Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler?
Councillor Gwyneth Kensler. Against.
Christine Marston?
Against.
Councillor Melvin Mile?
For.
Councillor Bob Murray?
Against.
Councillor Mervyn Parry? Councillor Paul Panlington? Don't think he's here. Okay, Councillor Pete Prendergast?
Against.
Councillor Peter Scott?
Against.
Councillor Tony Thomas?
Against.
Councillor Julian Thompson-Hill?
Abstain, as I wasn't here for part of the debate.
Thank you. Councillor Joe Welch? I am against. Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn?
Councillor Emrys Wyn.
I haven't got you, Emrys.
You're on mute.
I'm unmuted now.
Against.
Councillor Mark Young?
Against.
Thank you. Again, as I do tend to forget somebody's name at some point during the meeting, if I do forget your name, just make sure you shout out before I call out the results. So there we go. No, the other way around. Sorry. Yeah, so we have for the application 2, against the application 15, and 1 abstain. Therefore, that application has been refused in accordance with officer recommendation. Okay, moving swiftly on to agenda item number 6. On page 63 of our reports. The ward is DYSERTH. The ward member is Councillor David Gwynn Williams. Application number is 42/2020/0923/PF. The proposal is the erection of a multi-storey dwelling with detached garage with store over, erection of a single-storey lodge dwelling and associated works. The location is the land of former quarry off High Street, DYSERTH, RHYL. And we do have a speaker on this item, and it is an Eleanor Carpenter. We do not have any speakers against, we just have one speaker for, Eleanor Carpenter, who is the agent. So when you are ready, you will have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Morning, thank you very much.
Morning.
I'd just like to say I'm speaking at committee on behalf of our clients, Jamie and Nicola Bonner, who are applying for permission to erect a spacious family dwelling for themselves and their young family, and a second smaller dwelling for close family members. The application site is within the former tarmac quarry site, but only comprises a proportion of the site. It's not proposed to develop the rest of the site, and indeed the applicants are keen to protect and, where appropriate, improve the ecology of the site. The site is within settlement boundaries of DYSERTH, and as such, the general principle development is accepted. Due to the scale and nature of the location within the quarry, considerable thought has been given to the design and materials proposed, along with the former industrial nature and heritage of the site. It's considered that a modern design that takes its lead from this is wholly appropriate, and that a smaller and less distinctive property would look out of place and be dwarfed by the surrounding landscape. The design and layout of the site makes use of the topography, as you can see on the plans, and the location of the site within the former quarry means it's well screened and does not impact detrimentally on the nearby AONB. The building itself incorporates sustainable design features such as a green roof and renewable technologies in the form of a ground source heat pump and photovoltaic panels, and it's intended to meet passive house standards. There will also be rainwater harvesting measures incorporated. The concerns raised have been in relation to flooding, as far as I'm aware, but the application is supported by clear evidence that shows that the proposed development will not create any flooding issues. The flooding that has been reported and raised as a concern at 2 neighbouring properties occurred historically when the quarry was in the ownership of Tarmac, and is not a matter for this application. It's noted that during a period of extreme rainfall early in the year, when other parts of DYSERTH flooded, there was no flooding at the quarry or caused by runoff from it. Also, the consideration of this application, we feel, should only relate to the application site, not the wider quarry area. The applicants are willing to contribute to the open space obligation as referred to in the committee report. And we therefore request that the application is granted as it is in line with the relevant planning policies and guidance, with any conditions attached to permission as considered appropriate by the local planning authority. I hope that covers most things, but if not, please feel free to ask me any questions.
Thank you very much. No, that was nice and clear. Thank you very much. Okay, so there is no information on the blue sheets. I did just forget to mention, obviously, officer recommendation is to grant on this. So you've obviously got quite a lot of information in the reports there. I will bring in the local member now, which is Councillor David Williams. I know he's here somewhere.
Thank you, Chairman. No, I have no objections whatsoever to the plan per se. My concern is that I don't see how water can be dealt with on a site that is predominantly rock. That how a soakaway is going to work, and those are the concerns of a lot of some of the neighbours. So as I'd like to stress that I have no objection to the property being developed. It is rather I'm not satisfied that soakaways are going to be effective in this area. That is the crux of the issue.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll just bring in officers on that, because I think it's this issue that we're having on a monthly basis with regards to the SUDs and the SAB, and I think it's a frustrating one for members. So if I just bring in the officers on that, and perhaps you can just clear it up, because I totally empathise with the local member there.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think, as everyone's saying, we'll understand people's concerns about flooding. It's very much, a topic of debate, isn't it? All we can say is that the planning process in very recent times has been through quite a sort of change, in as much as whilst we were the sort of fundamental body to determine the impact of surface water drainage for many years, that has been shifted from us now. That is now with the Drainage Authority. So as we all say, the SAB, or the Sustainable Approval Body, they have to assess the proposals separately. That sits outside of the planning process. What we have on this planning application is percolation test results, which suggest clearly to us, and enough information for us at planning level, that the site can be developed without resulting in surface water flooding elsewhere. So it can be managed within the site. So I think the actual technical detail, how that's going to be achieved, is something to be dealt with through the SAB application process. Again, I totally understand members' concerns, because sometimes that can seem a little bit of an invisible process to them. And I think maybe that's something that we need to address outside of this meeting with the drainage section, is how we can actually get members more involved if they have concerns on a particular site. However, I must stress that's not an issue for today's discussion, and that officers are content the site can be developed, that SAB is the suitable process for dealing with surface water, and therefore we recommend in grant. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I do have a few speakers. Apologies if I haven't got the order of which people put their hands up in, but I'll go with Councillor Brian Jones first.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just to make some comments on the I'll call it flood risk management. The SUDs obviously came into place because it wasn't working in the other mechanism, but we shouldn't forget, and you might say, I'm for this application this morning, but what's not happening is we're not joining the dots up. This is one application here which we can pass this morning, but in that area, and when you stray into Melodon, there's already flood issues that are occurring that haven't happened for 40 years because of the not joined up thinking. So there's a flaw in our system with the drainage and the planning, and that needs to be addressed, obviously, outside this issue. But passing this application, it'll be another little drop of water which isn't properly accounted for. Where will it go, and where will it cause a problem? Because the local council has already said it's falling onto rock, and are the soakaways sufficient enough? And whilst it might be okay for this particular application, we're building a problem here, and there's a flaw in the planning process and the SUDs. It's not joined up, and if it doesn't get sorted soon, you will end up with more and more problems. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, valid point. Thank you. Councillor Mervyn Parry.
just in case you can't hear me. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, loud and clear.
My concerns again go back onto the SUDS and SAB on the application of this, because it's a sort of again, it looks like something that we don't seem to have control over. And I think that even though it's possibly some of it's not for today's meeting, I suggest as Chair of Planning and the lead member here, that you take this back to somewhere in planning so that we can actually get something done a little bit harder on this, that we have some sort of control over it. I mean, the new flooding areas that are coming in from NRW will have an impact on where we can't build houses, and for applications maybe or to hide behind SABs and SUDs is, in my view, unacceptable. And I think that we should have the whole thing cleared up and signed off before the application comes in before us in planning, so we can make a full decision on it. Could I request that we put a condition in the planning today on this one, because of the nature of the site, that when SABs or SUDs make their recommendations to the planning, that the local member, David Williams, is involved in the decision making of, or not the decision making, but is involved of the process before it's all signed off, so he can agree with them that he's happy that this quarry isn't going to flood DYSERTH like it has done in the past. So I'd just like to put that point into the planning, please.
Okay. I mean, that should be okay. I'll just check with, yeah, Paul Griffin's going to come in on that one.
Thank you. No, to be honest, I don't think we can actually condition that when SAB deal with their application, which is, again, completely separate, doesn't feed back to us. When the SAB body deal with their application for the drainage on this site, that they involve the local member. However, as I say, I think this is something that we take from this discussion, that we need to be speaking to the drainage team. We need to be, enforcing or encouraging as much as we can that they involve the local community where relevant. I think we have to be careful though, because obviously they do have to operate within line what their regulations say. So they've obviously got their bare line of how they deal with it. But I don't think we can put a condition onto that effect. But we can take this as a practice point from the meeting, and we can raise it with the drainage team and get some kind of conversation going between the drainage team and the local member. Thank you.
Can we do it as a, can't do it as a note to applicant or anything?
Chair, can I come back there?
Yes.
Paul says there he doesn't think. I'd like to propose that we do it and then challenge that one, because I think it's an important point not just for this application, but for other applications going forward from today. So he either knows or he doesn't know. Sorry, Paul, to push you on that one.
We couldn't condition that they have to liaise with the local member. We couldn't do that. We could put a condition on, although it's been challenged at appeal and many authorities have lost on this, but we could try the condition that says prior to development commencing, we would like to see full details of the drainage, the surface water drainage system. The danger with that is we are actually duplicating other legislation, and that's one of the fundamental tests of whether a planning condition is acceptable or not, as to whether or not it's duplicating other legislation. But if members, want to attempt that, you would be open to challenge potentially. It's not a particularly high risk challenge. They've got to do the work anyway. We could condition that if you wanted. Thank you.
Okay, do you want to come back on that, Mervyn? So obviously it can be a condition, but it might be challenged. Are you happy to want to still put that condition in?
I would quite happy to put that in, and we'll challenge it if need be. We challenge lots of things. That's what we're here to do, to challenge the system. So I'm quite happy to put it in if somebody will second me on that one.
Okay, do you have a seconder on that? Councillor?
Yeah, I'll second that, Chair, most definitely. I will second that.
Okay, so yeah, I will. So just to be clear, Councillor Parry, are you proposing that we grant the application with that condition, or were you just talking about the condition?
So I'm happy for us to grant the application.
Yep.
For development, but with that condition on the.
Okay, and that was seconded by Councillor Brian Jones. So happy for that as well.
Sorry, for completeness, can you just set out what that condition is again? Because there's been a couple of conditions, just so it's clear for everybody. Thank you.
Are you asking me to do that? Or...
Yes, please. Yes, please, Councillor Parry. Yeah.
What show that the SUDS is or the groundwater drainage and whatever is all passed before the start of the development of the site.
Yeah, okay. I'll let officers just dwell on that for a couple of minutes because I've got a couple of other speakers as well, and then we can come back to that. So I've got at the moment I've got Cynghora then Miss Wynn, and I've got Councillor Mark Young, and I think Councillor Ann Davis put up a hand as well. So we'll go to Cynghora then Miss Wynn first.
My comments it's not to do with what we've just discussed now. I don't know whether Mark Young and others want to discuss that first before I make my comments. If it's a continuity of what's already been said. Yeah, no, you go for it. Okay, thank you. Well, I agree with what Mervyn Paris just said. Could I just say that about the drainage and so forth, and we sometimes put the cart before the horse when we discuss these things sometimes. Could I talk about the industrial heritage? I see nothing in the report that talks about this as a previous industrial site, as a number of these in the area that are to do with the quarrying side of things. And mining. Is it possible for us to put a condition in to ask for a survey, just a heritage survey to be conducted of the site before any development happens, if that's allowed today, if it's gains permission today? It's important that these are maintained for historians of the future.
Okay, thank you. I'll put that to officers in just a moment. Okay, we've got Councillor Mark Young.
Chair, just turn my camera off. I couldn't disagree with whatever has been said by members regarding the SAB and the SUDS. I've already spoke to the chair about having a meeting with officers, and I think it's quite sensible that the SAB, the SAB, should be approved before it comes to planning. So I understand it's a separate process, but I do believe when it comes before us, it should be signed off or shouldn't signed off. It sounds very strange to us, especially when in the reports like today, there's been flooding in that area. It would make sense. So that meeting will take place, and I take on board all the comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah. I think a lot of members of the public think that the planning is always the last step of an application, whereas obviously nowadays there's steps that go on beyond planning. Councillor Ann Davis.
Yeah, my concern would be about the residents being flooded. Now, it's quite clear in the report that the quarry has previously flooded, filled with water, and neighbouring properties have experienced flooding. Despite the quarry owner putting a soil bund in place, they were still flooded. Having had my own property flooded in the past, it has a huge impact on you. And it's going to devalue the other residents' properties. And I think this should be taken into account. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll just bring in the officers back on Cynghora then Miss Wynn's point as well about the heritage report, and just happy with wording a condition there, similar to what Councillor Mervyn Parry said.
Yes, I'm trying to get my head around what the heritage survey what we'd be asking for. My understanding of the site is that it is literally a disused quarry. I don't think there's anything of note there. So.
The photograph that's shown where you saw we can see the remains of a building. It looks a bit like possibly some sort of a kiln. I don't think it is a kiln, but obviously it is of interest, historical interest. I would, if I was involved in something like Powys Archaeological Trust, etc., I would have an interest in that archaeological aspect of it, which is likely to disappear with this building. I'm okay with that. I haven't got an issue with that, but there should be at least some photographic evidence and plans to show what was on site in the past. I think it's of interest, and I think it is a valid planning condition for such surveys to take place at appropriate areas. Bear in mind that this site is actually part of various other similar sites in the area between Meliden and Prestatyn. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's clear. Just go to
Yep, thank you, Councillor Wynne. I understand where you're coming from that. I was a bit unsure at first with the heritage survey, but a photographic survey, a record of the site as it stands, yeah, we can condition that. We can draft suitable wordings for that. The other issue we had on the conditions was Councillor Parry's condition. We can't condition that somebody gets secondary legislation approval before we grant planning permission. Similarly, we can't force them to get that approval before we make a planning decision. I totally understand the concerns of all the members that have this issue and all the members. We really, legally, we cannot put that down as a condition. We can ask, however, that the details of the surface water drainage shall be submitted to us prior to development commencing. I think there may be more option therefore, you know, that way to get local members involved with the process more than maybe what SAB can legally offer them to do. So that's my suggestion.
Yeah, I think that sounds.
For it to be go through before the start of development, not halfway through or whatever, before the development starts, that is all submitted to you and you sign it off, or whoever signs it off before the development starts, not before planning, but before the development starts.
Okay, just bring in the legal officer on that one.
Thank you. So for the details to be shared appropriately, that is on the side of lawfulness as opposed to unlawfulness, whereas the previous suggested condition was, I would say, unlawful, and there was the risk of cost in the event of challenge. But I think that's been addressed now. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. And just to confirm, obviously, CLWYDIAN has suggested an additional condition. So, proposer, Parry, are you happy to put that we have a photographic survey? Are you happy to be part of your proposal?
Yeah, that's fine as well. Yes.
Okay. Just turn your camera off. Sorry, you're getting a bit crackly.
There was also another historic part of the quarry of the lost skeleton that was landed up in Aberystwyth from the DYSERTH quarry. Whether the historic people have got sight of that one as well, but that maybe the local member could bring that up in something else when they're making some conditions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Brian Jones as a seconder, are you happy to have that secondary condition put on by CLWYDIAN?
Yes, no problem.
So that's just for a photographic survey. Okay, good. Right. I think we're ready to go to the vote. Does the local member, did you want to come in on anything? Oh, Councillor Ann Davis.
Could you just repeat the conditions on this application, please?
Yes, so the additional conditions on the application, one is to have, I'll try and do it, one is to have a photographic survey before obviously any buildings are demolished. And the secondary one is that the details of the SAB or the SUDS application is shared with the local planning authority. Okay. There we go. So somebody's not on mute. Something about £300. So there we go. Okay. CLWYDIAN Davis, are you happy with that?
Shouldn't we be having an archaeological dig rather than just photographic evidence?
That's not something that has come up in any of the things so far. And again, I think a photographic survey would be, this is my opinion, but a photographic survey would be a reasonable thing to ask the applicants to do. I think an archaeological dig, we might be going a little bit out of our remit there. I'll bring in Paul Griffin anyway.
Yeah, just to reiterate, when you're putting a condition on, there are 6 tests to what is a lawful, acceptable condition. 2 of those are that it's got to be reasonable and necessary. Now, on the information in front of us, I understand that actually there is some industrial heritage on the site and that a photographic record would be the best way of recording that for posterity. I think that an excavation dig, given the nature of the site, is unlikely to throw up anything of significant of interest. I think you'd be really struggling to argue why it was either reasonable or necessary to go to that extreme on a site which, you know, by its very nature has actually been excavated. It's not a site that's been built upon with things lying underneath it. It's quite the opposite has happened. So I think when we're looking at reasonableness and necessity, those two fundamental tests, I think the photographic survey would pass, but an actual excavation wouldn't. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so we're happy to not put that on and just go to the vote. Yep, I see some nodding, so that's fine.
Can
I just come in quickly?
Built for the building. Hopefully there will be people available to observe what, even the developers themselves will observe what they dig into. Should anything come up, they would be obliged to report it.
I think that would be, yeah. I'll just bring in the local member then to finish. Oh, we're there, David. I'll bring you in at the end. I think Peter Evans has just got a hand up, and then I'll bring you in as local member at the end. Peter.
No, it's fine. It's fine, Chair. It was just that, you know, to ask you to bring the local member in for the final say.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Go for it, David.
Well, I'd like to. Firstly, I fully understand the recommendation to grant. Don't think there's any dispute about that, but I'd like to thank you all, or members that have spoke up about this SUDS issue and what I consider is cart before the horse. And I think I would welcome the planning being the final say, but that's for officers to decide. But I'd just like to thank members for their support. And one thing I would like to put on record, I know it's not a planning matter, but I find it rather disconcerting that people can cast aspersions and make allegations about councillors with impunity. And my name was brought into this, that I should have declared an interest. I won't go into detail. It was a false allegation. I've had no apology. I didn't expect one, and I didn't ask for one. But it's rather disconcerting that people can cast these aspersions with impunity, and I'd just like to put that on record as a general matter. Thank you.
No, very valid. Thank you very much. And I think, yeah, as I said before, the planning being the last port of call is what a lot of members of the public think that the planning is. And I think we have that with licenses as well. I've had in my ward recently with licenses coming after, being sought after the planning application, things like that. So yeah, certainly things to take forward. Okay, so we're going to go to the vote. So for this one, it is going to be obliged or for, if you want to vote in accordance with officer recommendation, alongside the two conditions as outlined by officers. Or you can go an Erbyn against, or you can Amatel abstain. Okay, so Councillor Ellie Chard.
For.
Councillor Van Davis.
For.
Councillor Peter Evans.
Obliged.
For.
James.
For.
Councillor Brian Jones.
For.
Councillor Tina Jones.
For.
Councillor Gwyneth Kensler.
For.
Councillor Christine Marston.
For.
Councillor Melvin Lyle.
For.
Councillor Bob Murray.
For.
Councillor Melvin Perry.
For. And Joe, I'm going to have to leave the meeting after this one, so you may apologise for the rest of the meeting, but it's
Okay.
for this application.
Diolch yn fawr. Councillor Pete Prendergast.
For.
Councillor Peter Scott.
For.
Councillor Tony Thomas.
For.
Councillor Julian Thompson Hill.
For.
Councillor Joe Welch. For. Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn.
For.
Councillor Mark Hume.
For.
Okay, we have 18 obliged, for, 0 in Erbyn against, and 0 Amatel abstain. So therefore that application has been granted alongside the two conditions suggested by members. We are moving on now to agenda item number, it's not number 7, just get my stuff. It's agenda item number 8. And I'm just going to read it out, and then I'll bring in one of the local members who wants to speak before any public speakers speak on this item. So it's on page 115 of our reports. The ward is RHYL South East. The ward members are Councillors Brian Blakely, Councillor Brian Jones, Councillor Cheryl Williams. The application number is 45/2020/0844/PF. The proposal is the alteration and adaptation of existing nursing home to include extension of 2 additional bedrooms on the first floor, 2 fire escape enclosures and entrance canopy. The location is Sandy Lodge 83, DYSERTH Road, RHYL, LL18 4DT. Okay, and at this point, I'm just going to bring in Councillor Brian Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Once again, my fellow councillors, Councillor Blakely and Councillor Cheryl Williams are here this morning, and they fully support what I'm about to propose. This application was at planning last month, and I proposed a deferral, which went through. This morning, I'm again proposing a deferral on this application, and the reason for the deferral, I want, and my fellow councillors want, a site visit by the planning committee. We can do that now, we're in better times. It needs a site visit, they want a site visit, the residents want a site visit on behalf of their councillors, carrying that out. So I'm proposing a deferral on this item again, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Ann Davis looks like seconding it. Okay, we're obviously not having any discussion on this. I'm just going to go to the officers to check that that is a valid reason for deferral. And then we will have a vote on it. Okay, this isn't up for debate as yet. Yeah, so that is justified. So that is fine. So obviously you can vote to not defer. So or you can vote to defer. So we have.
If I can come back in, Chair, can yes. I just say, make a comment before you go to the vote? Yeah. Again, my Councillor Brian Blakely will support me on this as well. We feel that a bit of a lack of respect here from the officers. It was deferred at the last meeting, and no officer had the common decency to speak to the local members about this application coming forward within a month, when it's a high level issue on this RHYL South East ward. There's a lot of residents that are very upset about it, and the officers chose in a month not to speak to the local members. That needs going on record, because that's a very poor show. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I don't know whether officers, well, look, I don't think officers are going to need to come back on that right now unless they feel the need to. Obviously, that's on record, and that can obviously be moved forward as a comment. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're going to go to the vote on this. So it's going to be, this is just purely for deferral, not making a decision on the application. So you would vote.
Chair,
yes. Who's
Chair,
that?
Can I just come in here? Two things. Can I ask what the site visit will achieve? What is the reason for that? And can I also ask, there appears from all the information that keeps being sent to me, an objection to it being used in its former state, a nursing home, residential. Well, this is what it is.
Chair, can you stop conversation?
No, we can't. I appreciate what you're trying to say, Councillor James, but I don't think we can discuss anything about the merits of the application. It's the reason of a site visit is a justified reason. You may not feel that it's a reason that you think it should be deferred and want to make the decision today. And I think that's where members can obviously make up their mind. If they feel that a site visit would be justified and would have some impact on a decision, then you could obviously vote to defer. If you feel like you've got enough information today in the reports, then obviously you could make your decision today without a site visit. Then you could obviously vote to not defer it and go ahead and have the meeting for today. Okay, and I think officers seem happy by that.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Chair. All right. So we have got. So it's going to be applied for if you want to defer. Okay, so it's for to defer, against if you do not want to defer and you want to go ahead with the meeting today, and then obviously Amatel abstain if you don't want to, if you want to abstain from it. Okay, so we'll go first of all to Councillor Ellie Chard.
For.
Councillor Ann Davis. Councillor Peter Evans.
For.
Councillor Alan James. I haven't got here yet. Oh, there you go.
Against deferral.
Councillor Brian Jones.
For.
Councillor Tina Jones.
For.
Councillor Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler.
For.
Councillor Christine Marston.
For.
Councillor Melvyn Ryle.
For.
Councillor Bob Murray.
For.
Councillor Mervyn Parry has left, I believe. Councillor Pete Prendergast.
For.
Councillor Peter Scott.
For.
Councillor Tony Thomas.
For.
Councillor Julian Thompson Hill.
For.
Councillor Joe Welch against. Councillor Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn.
What was that?
Against.
Councillor Mark Young.
Against.
Okay, thank you. We have. We have 13 votes for deferral, 4 votes against and 0 abstain. Therefore, that application has been deferred until a later time. Right, that's all that. That's all the applications with speakers. We've got, no, I think we'll carry on because I don't think we've actually got that much longer. I could be wrong, and if I am, then we can have a break. But I don't think that, even though we've got 4 items left, I don't think they will take very long. So we're moving on to agenda item 7, which is on page 99 of our reports. The ward is Prestatyn East. The ward members are Councillors Anton Thompson and Councillor Julian Thompson Hill. The application number is 43/2021/0275/PF. The proposal is the erection of a 2-storey pitched roof extension to side of dwelling. The location is 36 Nant Hall Road, Prestatyn. There is no late information. The officer recommendation is to grant. And as you will see, the reason this has come to planning committee, and the main reason is that it's an application submitted by or on behalf of a member of the staff of planning service. So you can see the applicant is a Mrs. Sarah Stubbs. Okay, does the local member, Councillor Julian Thompson Hill, want to come in on this item?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. As you say, this is here purely because of the fact of who the applicant is. In terms of the merits of it, there were no issues, so I'd be very happy to propose in grant.
Okay, do we have a second for that? Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler, diolch yn fawr. Does anyone else have any comments on this? Okay, we will go to the vote on this one. Again, it's going to be obliged to vote for it in accordance with officer recommendation, voting against it, an erbyn or abstain. Okay, so we'll go through. Councillor Ellie Chard.
For.
Councillor Ann Davis.
For.
Councillor Peter Evans. Peter? Thumbs up or thumbs down if you can't unmute. I think you said 4 then. Yeah. Councillor Alan James.
Bye.
Councillor Brian Jones. Councillor Brian Jones, didn't hear you, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, someone jumped in with a 4, but I'm 4 as well, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Tina Jones.
For.
Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler.
For.
Councillor Christine Marston.
For.
Councillor Melvyn Ryle.
For.
Councillor Bob Murray.
For.
Councillor Pete Prendergast.
For.
Councillor Peter Scott.
For.
Councillor Tony Thomas. For. Councillor Julian Thompson Hill.
For.
Councillor Joe Welch. For. Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn.
For.
And Councillor Mark Young.
For.
Okay. Okay, so that is obliged 4, 17, an erbyn against 0, a matel abstain 0. Therefore, that application has been granted in accordance with officer recommendation. Moving on to application number 9. So we'll just say goodbye to Councillor Pete Prendergast at this point. Great, there we go. And as you have probably realised, the reason we're saying goodbye to him is that it's his application. So this is on page 131 of the reports. The ward is RHYL South. The ward members are Councillors Jeanette Chamberlain-Jones and Councillor Ellie Chard. The application number is 45/2021/0195/PF. The proposal is the erection of extension to of dwelling. The location is 53 BRYN Road, RHYL. The officer recommendation is to grant. Local member, Councillor Ellie Chard, would you like to come in at this point?
Yes, just to say that I'm very pleased that Peter's got this extension, and I would like to propose, but and lots of the bungalows around that area, which is a beautiful area of RHYL, not far from that other place that I spoke about last month, but never mind. And yes, I know. So yeah, it's all right. I'm just pulling your leg. So yes, I'd like to propose. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Do we have a second for that? Councillor Mark, I think it's got his thumbs up there.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone, again, just unmute if you would like to speak on this item? Again, it is the main reason it is before us today is because of the fact that it is an application by a current county councillor. Okay, we will go to the vote then. So again, it will be obliged for to vote in accordance with officer recommendation to grant, then Edwin against or abstain. So we'll go again. Councillor Ellie Chard.
Obliged.
Councillor Anne Davis. Councillor Peter Evans. Councillor Alan James.
Obliged.
Councillor Brian Jones. Councillor Tina Jones. Councillor 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 Christine Marston. Councillor Melvin Meyer. Councillor Bob Murray. Councillor Pete. Oh, he's gone. There's 3 in a row there, not now. Councillor Peter Scott. Councillor Tony Thomas. Councillor Julian Thompson Hill. Councillor Joe Welch. 4. Holiday
Number Swin.
Mark Young. Okay, so that one is obliged 4-16. And Edwin against 0. Amatel abstain 0. Okay, we do have a couple of other items. That's the actual applications. We've got a couple of other little interesting ones. Well, I think they're interesting anyway. So we do need on agenda item number 10, which we're moving on to now. And we do this again, does need an official vote on it. Okay, so it's to do with a tree and a tree preservation order. So obviously, if we look down on page, it starts on page 157, and the recommendation is on page 158. There's obviously quite a lot of information on this as a tree. It's a bit of a different one from what we're usually dealing with, but the recommendation is that the tree preservation order number 4 2020 land at 118 Broadegg Rhythin is confirmed without modification to afford the mature oak continued protection. Okay, so there's some photos in there and things of this tree. I'm going to bring in the officers to start off with. I know the local member will want to speak about this as well, because there have been some developments from the photographs that you can see in the report packs. Some work has been done on it. So I'll just bring in the officers and they can explain a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll just give you the background to this one. There's a tree in Rhythin. It was visited by ourselves as part of an approval of condition application. The tree itself was then determined at that time to have significant amenity. So it was deemed reasonable to put an emergency tree preservation order onto it. That order in itself only lasts for 6 months and runs out next month in June. So we have to, if we can, we need to confirm that that tree preservation order stays on in perpetuity. Now, in the time going, we've consulted with the neighbouring properties, and some objections to the tree preservation order have been received. These objections are sort of focused mainly on the safety of the tree. I think they're against the actual presence of it or the look of the tree. I think they were against the safety. They feared branches falling on their properties. We then got our tree consultant to look at the tree and to look at the tree report. There were some physical defects to the tree which could result in a safety issue. those works have been carried out to make the tree safe. So we've actually addressed the concerns raised to the tree preservation order. However, not all of them have been formally removed from the application. And this is why we present it to yourselves today in line with the council's constitution to seek your approval to confirm the TPO. Now, some concern has been raised that a lot of work has been done to this tree. I mean, if you visited it now compared to how it looks in the report pack, it looks significantly different. We've had it confirmed from the case officer and from our tree consultant that the works that have been carried out have been done so as to address the safety concerns. The works themselves should allow the tree to revitalise itself, I think is the phrase that the tree officer used. So although it looks a bit drastic at this point, the tree itself should survive that pruning work, and it will actually become better and revitalised in the future. So our recommendation is still clear that we confirm the tree preservation order today. If in the future, for whatever reason, that tree does die due to nature, well, then we can deal with that as it is. If we don't confirm today, then the tree preservation order will run out and it won't be protected, and there's a very high chance that the tree would be lost. Okay, I hope that's slightly long-winded, but it sort of focuses your mind on what it is. It's a procedural issue more than anything else at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it is important that we obviously make a decision today, one way or the other, on it as the order runs out before next planning committee. Okay, Cynghorau Emryswyn, tisio dod i...
Councillor Emryswyn, do you want to come in here? Yes, thank you very much. Yes. This application has caused a bit of concern to me recently, more than at the beginning, at the outset, because I had realised that work has been done with my usual technological method. I'm going to show you a photograph showing the tree as it is currently. That is its condition today, which is very different to what you see in your pack following the treatment that it's had. I hear what the officers are saying, that the tree is likely to renew itself and that it will, be fine. But as a matter of safety has been mitigated, I would ask for this to be deferred in order to allow us to have a further report on the condition of the tree following the work that has been done on it. Personally, I am concerned about its future as it is after that treatment, but I'm not an expert, and there are other people far more qualified than myself who know more about this. That's why I would wish to have a deferral in order to get a report, but that's not possible because of the timetable. But we have to decide today on the future of this tree, I think, and as there is an opportunity to have a report, I am not going to object to the application in order to preserve the TPO on the tree.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
So yeah, I understand your point of we were thinking of a deferral, but obviously that would not be wise. So we're happy to go ahead with it. So Councillor Julian Thompson-Hill, got some other speakers.
Thank you very much, Chair. As members probably aware, I'm always one to leap to the defence of trees and always object to removing healthy trees for no apparent reason. I was actually pleasantly surprised to see that we had actually put a temporary tree preservation order in place, because I know it's something that we don't do very often and perhaps should do more often. I accept that the work that are being done to it to make it secure, perhaps make it less aesthetically pleasing at this precise moment in time. And I also am no arboricultural expert, but of course, usually if you were going to do works to a tree, from my understanding, you wouldn't do it this time of year. It's not the best time of year to actually do it. You should do it in the back end of the year when the sap's not rising and all the rest of it. But presumably there's been reason why that's been done at the current time scale. But the long and short of it is, I suppose, I would propose that we do make permanent, or whatever the correct legal technical term, the tree preservation order on this tree. And as officers have said, should unfortunately it die in the future, then that will be a different decision at that point. But I think we do need to do everything we can to protect our trees, and therefore that's why I would make the proposal.
Thank you. So that's the proposal to confirm that we, without modification, we continue the protection TPO. So that's fine. Do we have a seconder for that?
Yeah.
Councillor Alan James, I saw lots of hands, but that was the one I saw first. There we go. Cynghorwyr Ddemyswyn?
Yeah, can I just come in quickly? I will support this application, obviously, this proposal. But just in the report, there is mentioned that the roots from the tree have disrupted the run of the foul drain. Now, I know there's a lot of complaining about how this has happened, but essentially, there is a reference to the drains that carry waste material. We know that because of the report. Now, it's not the impact of this decision now on that, but is there a responsibility on us as a committee to draw attention to this? Because you really don't want, pipes like these to have been blocked up. Certainly if you live further up in Broadacre area.
Yeah. Diolch. And the officers want to come in on any of that? I think once you've spoken, we can probably go to the votes. But if you have any comments on that?
I don't think the issue regarding the drains is one for discussing at this point. We are literally looking to confirm that order. Any impacts that the tree may have or have in the future obviously be dealt with through the tree preservation order legislation. So we're not saying work can't ever be done to the tree again. We're not saying that issues that arise from the tree can't be dealt with. We've got the tree preservation in place to make sure that those works are totally necessary and are done in the correct manner at that time. So again, it is a process more than actually debating the issues of the tree. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll go to the vote. On this one, it does need to be a formal vote. So you'll have to hear me calling out your names again. So again, it will be Orblyde for if you are in agreement with keeping the TPO. It will be an Erbyn against if you are against keeping the TPO, and a Matal abstain. Okay, so Councillor Ali Chad.
Oaklyde.
Deal. Councillor Andrews. Councillor Peter Evans.
Oaklyde.
Alan James.
Oaklyde.
Four.
I didn't hear that, sorry, Brian.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Tina Jones.
Sally 4.
Thanks. Cynghorwyr Kensler.
4.
Councillor Christine Marston.
4.
Councillor Melvin Mile.
4.
Councillor Bob Murray.
4.
Councillor Peter Scott.
4.
Councillor Tony Thomas. Didn't hear that, sorry, Tony.
4.
Thanks. Councillor Julian Thompson-Hill. 4. Councillor Joe Welch. 4. Cynghorwyr Ddemyswyn.
Councillor Ddemyswyn. 4.
Councillor Mark Young.
With Julian, 4.
Okay, so that is Orblyde 4-16. An Erbyn against 0. A Matal abstain 0. Just sounds like a bad round of golf. Okay. Last item on the agenda is agenda item 11. So we'll just go through this. There are some officers on our Zoom meeting. I'm not sure if you can see them on your screens, but they are there. If you do have questions about this, I can see Tony Hughes now is there. So if you do have questions on this item, then that's fine. We can ask these. If I just run through what the recommendations are, okay? Obviously, the lead member is Councillor Mark Young and Councillor Tony Thomas for these. So if they want to speak on this, I'll let them come in first in a moment. The report relates to draft supplementary planning guidance for lighting in the Clwyddian Range and Dee Valley area of outstanding natural beauty, which, if adopted, will be used in the determination of planning applications. So currently a draft SPG. The recommendation is that Planning Committee agree the draft SPG Planning for Dark Night Skies supplementary planning guidance for lighting in the Clwyddian Range and Dee Valley for public consultation. Okay, so that's what we're agreeing, basically that this goes out to public consultation. Okay, so do either Councillor Mark Young or Councillor Tony Thomas want to come in on this as lead members?
As chair of the AONB, yeah, obviously I would fully support this, and it would enhance our Dark Skies project, which is growing considerably and will be benefit for tourism for the area. So definitely yes.
So that's a proposal there. Thank you, Councillor Mark Young. Do you want to come in and second that?
Yeah, and excellent work by the officers. We had a really good presentation on this to SPG, so I fully support it and I'm happy to second. Thank you, Giacomo.
Thank you. Do any members want to come in and comment on this? I mean, it's just to go out to consultation. So obviously, if you did have any comments on it, then obviously you can reply to the consultation as well, or any questions. If not, we will go to the vote. This one, because we've had a proposer and a seconder, this one can be a softer vote, so we don't have to call out all your names, and we can just do this as if you disagree, if you unmute and say that you don't want this to go out to consultation. Otherwise, we will assume that everyone is happy for this to go out to consultation. Okay, so I'll give you a few seconds to unmute if you do not agree with it going out to consultation. Okay, so that seems to confirm that we're happy for that to go out to consultation. And yeah, and thank you very much for Tony for coming to the meeting. You've got off lightly today, but that's obviously because it's just going out for consultation and the draft. And hopefully we'll get some, you know, if we can promote that as well to get some really good responses back from the public, because that's, you know, one thing that NSPGs, they do, you know, take on the feedback and use it, and it can actually make the SPG a bit stronger. So if we can do that as councillors in our areas to encourage that, that'd be fantastic. All right, 11:05. Didn't think we were going to finish at 11:05 today. There we go. Right. Have a nice, enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.